I think it's still very robust, to be honest. Now, the data that I look at is obviously off of our properties, and our properties are growing in terms of attendance on a double-digit basis year over year. So that's very strong. Our sales per square foot are continuing to grow at a very strong pace, and we have a lot of demand for retail space. So retailers, the best-in-class retailers are growing. You take a look at a broader picture, I think there's a little bit of softness out there in some of the categories. Luxury is not growing as much as it has. There's some luxury retailers that are suffering a bit, but I'm still pretty bullish on the consumer in the United States.
We should remind everybody, the properties and the developments that you've done have really served at the higher end of the consumer. People even outside of the Los Angeles area would be familiar with the Grove, for example, or perhaps Miramar in Montecito, just around Santa Barbara. But the vast majority in the Southern California area. What about Southern California's economy, that economy that you focus on? What have you noticed in terms of changes in the last couple of years as we've heard this steady drumbeat of information about people leaving the region because of the regulatory environment, the cost pressures, what have you?
Well, I think you're right, and I think it's a challenge. So when you take a look at LA City, in particular, LA County, you do have a very overregulated, tough business environment, and it's very tough, especially on middle or small businesses, to operate in the city because of the cost of operation. So you do have businesses leaving, and that's troubling because the backbone of our economy in Southern California are the small businesses. So, one of the things that we push for, I push for as just a business person and a member of this community, is to be more business friendly and to start deregulating so we can grow businesses in the Los Angeles region. And I think as a state, we have a problem with that. We have businesses leaving the state of California, going to regions that are more business friendly, have less red tape, allow businesses to thrive on a much easier basis. So, hopefully the tide will change on that, but it's certainly an issue in Southern California, and I think California in general.
Yet you remain, Rick. You have not moved to Arizona. You have not moved businesses to Arizona, to Texas, to Florida, these areas of the country where people from California have been going as a result of regulatory easing, one could say. Will you stay in California?
Well, I'm bullish on California. I'm going to stay in California. I believe in it. I think we should be leading the nation in California. I think we should be leading the nation in Los Angeles. And I also have a practical problem. You can't pick up large projects and move them. I can't pick up the Grove and move it. So I have to remain engaged, bullish, and hope we change the trajectory. And I think we will. I really do. I think people are at a point, certainly in the Los Angeles area, that they've realized that the path we're going down is not sustainable. We've got a budget in LA City that's $1 billion out of budget. We have revenue decreases in LA City because businesses have pulled back and left. And we don't have new capital and investment coming into LA like we should. They're going into other regions, even immediately outside of Los Angeles. You have cities that are doing incredibly good jobs. The city of Glendale, the city of Culver City, that are more business friendly, are safer, cleaner, more supportive of great neighborhoods, and they're attracting the business at the cost of LA City. So we've got to change that. But I remain optimistic that change is coming soon.
How are politics getting in the way of all of this? And I ask it, Rick, you've got California Governor Newsom and President Trump really in kind of high stakes feuds over a bunch of issues, whether it's California's universities, their environment, redistricting, and other issues. I mean, talk to me about that, and whose side are you on in all of this?
Well, honestly, I'm on the side of the people of LA and the people of California. Here's the problem that I have with the battle that's going on. We've got some really serious problems that need to be dealt with. Crime, shortage of housing, homelessness, et cetera, the cost of living in California. Having an argument between the governor and the president, between the mayor and the president, a lot of name calling going on, doesn't advance anybody's cause to solving these problems. So what I hope is that we get past the rhetoric, figure out a way to sit down, find some common ground, and work together. Here in Los Angeles, we have 300,000 acres in Pacific Palisades, Malibu, and then also at an Altadena that was burned to the ground, the size of 2 Manhattans. To put it in perspective for New Yorkers, we need federal help. We need federal funding, and we're getting none of that. And I don't think, as the bickering is going on and the name calling is going on, that serves any purpose in advancing the negotiations or the discussions and getting federal help in Los Angeles.
We're speaking with Rick Caruso, founder and executive chairman of Caruso, the privately held real estate company. On the federal aid, on the federal funding, have you had conversations with President Trump or members of the Trump administration expressing the need, in your view, for federal help for California in the wake of these disasters?
I've had those discussions not with the president directly, but I've had those discussions with intermediaries. I've certainly had that discussion with our governor. And we need to find a way to get those discussions at a higher level and more productive. I know there's some talk, Governor Scott or Senator Scott was out here in Los Angeles and talking about it. But it really is critical path, because you have hundreds of thousands of people that have been displaced. You got jobs that have been lost. You have a massive, massive rebuilding effort that's going to take tens and tens of billions of dollars in infrastructure. So we need the federal help. It just has to happen.
Well, you know,
it should happen.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And you've, since the fires, I know Tim and I, just kind of preparing for this, listened to a lot of conversations you've had with various individuals about this in terms of what needs to be done. You know, what's interesting is need more federal help in terms of the rebuilding efforts. So then how do you feel when President Trump illegally used federal troops in LA? I mean, if you were mayor there, how would you respond to President Trump and his threats and use of troops? Like, that's going on when, obviously, as you say, there are efforts needed to do the rebuild.
Well, I've been very clear. The federal troops coming into LA were wrong. And I don't think it should have ever happened. I would have gone to court immediately. They finally did go to court. As you know, the court ruled that it was an illegal use of those troops to come into the city of Los Angeles in this region. So it's not right to be doing that, and we don't need to be doing that. I mean, that just, this power grab that's going on does not advance the cause for any, it just doesn't. And the division between the politics is harmful to the residents of Los Angeles. We've got to find some common ground. We've got to act like grown-ups. We've got to put our differences aside as elected officials and figure out how to work together. And so I would hope that our elected officials find a way to drop the name calling, maybe get on a plane and get over to Washington and see if we can find some common ground to work together. We also have the Olympics coming here. So Los Angeles is going to be the world stage for the United States. And we need to be putting our best foot forward. And we're going to need to be making a lot of investments in order to do that. And again, we need to have the help of the federal government to do that.
So, Rick, I'm kind of waiting for the flood of my emails to come into my Bloomberg, because I think people who are listening would say, well, this is the kind of individual you do want in politics. So what's your latest thinking on maybe running again for mayor or possibly governor of the state of California?
Well, I'm seriously looking at it. And I've got a team of people that are working on it, and I'll make a decision soon on that. And I'm looking at both paths, and there's good opportunities in both paths. But now I'm just remaining focused on what we're doing at Steadfast, making sure we're getting people back in their communities as quick as possible. Yesterday, I spent the afternoon in Altadena. We were giving out grants for small businesses to get reopened in Altadena. We're doing the same in Palisades and in Malibu. So those kind of efforts are incredibly important to me because, again, small businesses are critically important for jobs. And we're giving out about $1 million in grants over the next couple of weeks. So that's what I'm going to stay focused on for now. Politics will come down the road fairly soon.
All right. We want to talk about some of those efforts you're doing in terms of the rebuild. I got to ask you, though, if you do run or make a decision, would it be for mayor or for governor?
I don't know yet. We're going to find out. I'll let you know.
Okay.
We're studying both.
I'm going to hold you to it. I'm going to hold you to it.
Hey, Rick, I'm curious about just fire resilience in California, especially in the wake of Palisades. I'm from the Central Coast. I was glued to watch duty because of the Gifford fire just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I spent 10 days just refreshing that thing, watching the progress of that fire. What is the right way for Californians to be ready for what has become just a part of daily life for a big portion of the year?
Well, we have to have very smart brush management. You know, one of the problems in the Palisades, we had 40 years of brush that were not maintained by the state, the county, or the city. That was rocket fuel. We have to have water. I mean, it was an unbelievable circumstance that we had reservoirs that are empty. So the competency level at the government and being prepared is critically important. LA City was not prepared for this fire. This fire, in my opinion, and I think in most people's opinion that have seen the facts, is this fire could have been prevented, certainly significantly mitigated in terms of the damage. And then we have to be encouraging people to build with non-combustible materials. You know, fortunately, the village that we built survived it, but it survived it because we were prepared to fight the fire. But equally important, we built it with non-combustible materials. And so it was able to withstand the fire around us. And we had a lot of smart people doing some things. So we can build better and smarter, but we also have to have better infrastructure. You know, the fire hydrants need to work. They were not working in Los Angeles. The reservoirs need to be full. And this is an opportunity right now to rebuild Malibu, Pasadena, Altadena, and Palisades in a way for the next 100 years and to get the right infrastructure put in. It's an incredible opportunity to create these communities for the future. And that's why we need to work with the federal government, get the right federal funding, and get some smart leadership locally that builds it back properly so that we can withstand fires and other natural disasters in the future. It can be done.
Rick, the nonprofit you are leading, as we said, called Steadfast LA, you've got companies such as Netflix, Amazon, JP Morgan Chase, CBRE Group, so many who are working to restore these communities, but you guys are looking at everything. You're using AI. How long do you think it's going to take for the rebuild? And ultimately, are we talking about kind of the cities of the future in terms of the materials used and how it's done?
You know, I think it's going to take, there's going to be phases. I look at it, what's going to be happening 1 year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. 1 year from now, for example, the little downtown of the Palisades is going to get reopened. We're going to rebuild the park. Steadfast is leading the park rebuilding. Schools are getting back reopened, and we're involved in supporting the school systems and getting reopened. Same in Altadena, same in Malibu. I think in 3 years, you're going to see a lot of the homes back and running. We have some really encouraging programs with an alliance of builders who are coming together to buy in bulk, be able to build less expensively. And so that's really important to do. And I think in 5 years, we're going to be in pretty good shape getting these communities back on its feet. The biggest challenge we have, honestly, is the lack of diligence, the lack of urgency from the local governments to get permits issued. And we've got to speed that up and cut the red tape, both in the county and in LA City, so people can rebuild.
Hey, Rick, before we let you go, I want to talk a little about your family foundation that's been involved at this point for more than 30 years in Watts, the Caruso Family Foundation. And it serves organizations, a slew of organizations in the area. And I'm just wondering, you know, the focus is on healthcare, it's on education, at-risk kids. I'm wondering why we need organizations to step in and fill the gap that isn't necessarily provided by other organizations. Why do we need the Caruso Family Foundation to do this? When will your work be done and you won't have to help bridge that gap?
Well, I don't think our work is ever going to be done, but I have to tell you something. It's one of the most rewarding parts of my life and my wife's life and my family's life that we can help kids that are at risk, living at or below the poverty line. And you bring opportunities to them and the right education and the right support. We have kids that are living in some of the worst and toughest conditions in LA, and they're now at Harvard, MIT, Georgetown, USC, UCLA, and they're just excelling and doing it on their own because they had the right ecosystem around them and the right start and the right support. And government alone can't do everything. It never has been able to. You have to have philanthropy. And people need to give back and lean in and support churches and schools and all these great organizations that we have out there. And what I would argue for is we need more people to be leaning in. We need more foundations to be giving back because the reward and the payoff is so great and so huge And it really does change these communities because these kids are coming back and helping others. I just find it one of the greatest parts of my life is being involved and being able to see these kids just take off and do great things.